Yeah, this is going to be a short but sweet one, I think. It's not, I don't really need to show any examples because it's just pretty self-explanatory, but I want to go over this very common mistake. I say it even with really good drivers. This is very, very common. So the problem that we see here is if we look at graph two, you see the trail brake, it peels off. But the thing is, the people drop it at like the last few percentage. So let's say this was like 10% right here. People just drop it to naught in like a very short period of time. This is incorrect. Most of the time we want to do this, especially if we're in a high downforce car. So where this is really important is if we're in a GTP, LMP2, or any other high downforce cars, formula cars, etc., etc. This is really important. If you do this, you're losing time. I guarantee it. The reason is because, well, there's two really big reasons. One reason is that you're going to lose downforce, right? If you drop the brake like this, because you have to think of the front splitter. When you brake, the front nose squats down, and the split is really close to the floor, so it generates a bit more downforce. You also have a bit more rake, especially if you have high dynamic rake, which is something completely else. If you don't know what that is, it just means how much the car sort of squats and like rolls longitudinally when you brake or accelerate, etc., etc. And if you have a lot of dynamic rake, that means when you brake and you start trail braking, the front will squat down a lot, which means you have more downforce on the front splitter. So when we drop the brake, basically the front suspension pops back up and the front splitter comes up as well. And what happens is you lose a lot of downforce. So it's really, really important to make sure you're not dropping the brake. So this is one of the reasons why it's really important. The second reason is because the lack of downforce will also mean that you have understeer on the fronts. So you will cook the tires way quicker than someone who's doing this consistently. If you do this consistently throughout a stint, guarantee your front tire is going to be absolutely cooked and for a stint. You'll have noticeably worse tire wear if you do the drop of the brake. So it's really important to not drop the brake here. Um, it's another reason. Another effect of this is obviously if we think of weight transfer as well. When you're braking, the weight transfer goes to the front. If you drop the brake, it's just going to shoot back, and your car's going to be quite neutral. And most of the time when the car's neutral, it's quite understeery. So it's going to also understeer. So you'll lose time because you have less rotation, and yeah, you'll lose a lot of downforce, which again, less rotation, slower. Um, One also thing, a common side effect of this is that the one of the reasons why you may have this and the side effect of it is so it's not really well drawn out, but you can sort of see. So in this phase here, you see how we have a lower percentage of the final phase of the trail brake, and here we have a higher percentage. Basically, when we trail brake like this, there's too high of a percentage. You're using too much of your longitudinal grip. So if you think back to the traction circle, if we're using a lot of the longitudinal grip, we're not going to have that much lateral grip. So that means we'll overwhelm the front tires most likely, and you're going to get some major understeer. So it's really, really important that your trail brake timing is correct. So a cause of this is your trail brake timing. If you have this consistently throughout the corners, it may be because your trail braking timing is just it's not it's not correct. You need to release the brake a bit more progressively and a bit quicker. You need to hold the final phase at a lower percentage. Basically, that is another cause of this drop in the brake, because you might find that at this point right here, the car's fully rotated, but then you have to drop the pedal. So what often happens, I also see this a lot, is let's say this is your throttle, the green. You see how it sort of cuts it off, and then this you drop it. This is also really, really bad, because you just lost all your downforce here on the front splitter. So this is also really bad. You're going to get some crazy understeer. Ideally, you always want your pedal trace to look something like this. Most of the time, it'll look something like this, where you have a bit of crossover. So if I was just to delete that previous one, so it's a bit cleaner, you have like a little bit of crossover. That's okay. Maybe this is a bit excessive. You want it, ideally, it's like you don't want too much, right? Ideally, you want none, but of course, there is always going to be a tiny bit of crossover. If you have no crossover, that's very, very good. But yeah, we usually cross over here, but this is way too bad because your percentage of the trail brake at the point of which you cross over onto the throttle is way, way, way too high in this graph here. So you're just going to have some terminal understeer. You're going to lose a lot of time. So that's one cause of that. Fix for this. So let's say you have this very consistently, and you think that you're on 1%, right? Like let's say at this point right here, you're like, I think I'm at 1%. Like your brain is telling you I'm at 1%. Then a fix for this would be to go to your brake settings, and you see the minimum force here. Obviously, this is different for each person, but you should increase it, because what that will do is it will move this downwards basically. So this bit here will move down, so it will turn more like this, and so your 1% will actually feel like 1%. If you have this consistently and it's not your trail brake timing, this can be a quick fix towards that problem. You can increase the minimum force, and that can really help. Um, but I should mention one thing. If you do this, you should increase the preload of the brake. The reason is because if you have a high minimum force, it means you have to apply quite a bit of pressure to have the 1%. Well, it's not that much, but it's like a noticeable amount. So you don't want the pedal to travel a lot before the 1% region, because it'll just feel really weird. It'll feel like you have like a ton of dead zone in the pedal. So you don't want that. So you want to increase the preload of the brake pedal, and then basically it'll be a sharper hit. So you'll feel that 1% underneath your foot. Like when I'm at this 1% here, I can feel the brake pedal underneath my foot, and I can feel the pressure underneath my foot. I like to run quite a high minimum force, because it feels like if I have a very low minimum force, I like you can't feel the brake pedal underneath your foot, and I feel like I'm no longer on the brake, if that makes sense. So I feel like I'm off the brake even though I'm still on the brake. So it's really, really important, I think, to set the minimum force correctly. My personal preference is to have quite a high minimum force, so I'm already in the resistance of the brake when I have the 1%. Like I can feel the hit of the spring, if that makes sense. I'm on the VRS pedals, if you can't already tell. So I have quite a high preload. Whereas some people like a really soft front hit. That's just personal preference. But if you have this problem, it could honestly be that you need this high preload and a higher minimum force, because you'll feel the brake pedal underneath your foot, and you'll be like, okay, I'm still on the brake here. Um, so that's another quick solution to this. So the key here really is, if you want to spot this mistake, it's most likely you need to go into telemetry and find this out if you're doing it consistently. Another thing you can use, you might have seen like a loads of streamers use like a pedal trace app. I use this because a lot of them are subscription only. Like I know Race Labs is, and like iOverlay, you have to subscribe for a pedal trace, which is crazy to me. So this is a free um, software that I use. It's called Iron. It looks really dodgy, but I promise it's not. It just runs on an exe file. It's really, really minimal. But honestly, the pedal trace graph is just like RaceLab or any other program, and I use it quite a lot actually. It's really, really useful in my opinion. If you use this, it's great, because sometimes when I go into a corner, I do it wrong. I'll look at my pedal trace and I'll be like, okay, maybe that's why I went wrong. It's like almost like live telemetry. It is so useful in my opinion to have a pedal trace on. A lot of people think it's a gimmick, but I used to think that as well, and I didn't use it for a long time, and now I've started using it again, and I'm like, okay, this is actually quite useful. If you know what to look at, very, very useful. Honestly, use this. If you need it, I'll put it in the description, and you can download it. But million% recommend this. But yeah, that's like the quickest fix I can give you. If it's inconsistent, so let's say one corner you have this drop, and then the next corner you don't, then it's most likely your trail brake timing, and that needs work. It's nothing to do with this minimum force. But if it's consistent in every single corner, and you feel like you're off the brake, but you're still on it, then it's definitely this. You should definitely increase the minimum force. So that's like a quick fix. But yeah, I mean, this is not going to be a long video. I don't think I really need to go into live session. It's just you need to look for yourself really. But the main symptom of this is understeer, understeer during the final phase of the trail brake as well. So really, really important, I think, this concept. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it helps.